yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment. He is on the road, but guess what? We're on assignment too. But we figure out a way to do the show. Charles is already on assignment in Birmingham, as he will be one of the lead group of individuals giving you the sounds and sights of the 2025 SWAC Baseball Championship in Birmingham, Alabama at Ricks Field. The oldest, I can't just say old, the oldest baseball park in the United States, home of the Negro Leagues, obviously another baseball program as well. Historic with a lot of players playing there. When you talk about, obviously, Michael Jordan, basketball, they played his minor leagues there. New York Yankee, Oakland A's, Reggie Jackson spent some time there and recently told his stories in terms of the time and age, which is appropriate when you think about all the things going on now. But from an HBCU perspective, we've seen Miles use that as their home baseball field this season. For a lot of time, we've seen some other Alabama State, Alabama A&M baseball games be played there as well. So a lot of history in that field. As we open it up, let me say welcome to episode 662 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As I said, Mike Washington is on assignment. Eddie Drew is taking care of business. Brian Fulford is taking care of business. David Rhodes is taking care of business. All of them on assignment. So that means that Charles and myself are going to take care of business with you all inside the HBCU Sports Lab. But we're filming from our home studios. Not really. We're on the road. I'm in Chicago for the Black Student Athletes Summit. Excited to take part in that. We'll be in Birmingham. Get down there on Thursday. I'll have to take a trip and get back to Houston, pick up my son Deuce, as we've been doing our annual trip to the SWAC baseball tournament. This is our 4th year. As school ends, we get together and do our trip, just the guys. We go baseball and we get a chance to laugh it up, check it up with his HBCU uncles and aunts as well, I should say, that love on him, and I certainly appreciate that while he really gets to see some baseball, including the players, his cousins, I guess you would say, or maybe slightly his uncles there as well. Coaches with a lot of respect with the way they treat all the young players around there, but particularly my son, as you would imagine. See in the background in the hotel, I got my little Sesame Street character going on back there, so take an extra glimpse of that, showing a little bit of love for Raymond. He'll put that together. With that being said, I want to shout out, as we always do, we're filming from the hotel, sending a signal live to KSWA's 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Charles, how are things going since you're already there? I know you were driving through traffic. You forget that all cities have that 5 o'clock traffic.
Right.
Trying to get your final pinpoints to be prepared for tomorrow. That's just how you do business, talking with coaches and looking at the facilities. Give us a little insight for those that can't get there till later, or some of those can only see on the television. Make them feel like that they're in person.
Let me just say, I mean, I was a fan of a fan of history, fan of baseball history, a student of the Negro League. I mean, the nostalgia within this stadium, it just jumps out. It is beautiful to kind of walk through this stadium and just remember yesteryear and have reverence for that time period. And it looks like it seats close to about 5,000 people, but you can just envision people dressed to the nines, and you see the pictures of people dressed to the nines in the background with baseball being played. It is immaculate for a history buff like myself to really just kind of take in Rick Wood Field. The big columns they go around the stadium, kind of it reminds you of old Yankee Stadium or Ebbets Field or something of that architecture. But it's beautiful to watch, and then to see the pictures that they've laid out and the nostalgia from days gone past. It is apropos to have HBCU baseball being played in this historic ballpark. I'm looking forward to it.
Have they been able to put the SWAC touch on it to have all the logos? Have they finished that up? How does that mix in with obviously the history itself of the SWAC and SWAC baseball, but you mix that in with HBCU? And as I've done in some of my lectures, books and stuff, we know the unique connection between literally the Negro League and HBCUs, whether it's players that went on to play in the Negro League or players that have become coaches in the SWAC. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they were in the process of the signage part when I was over there kind of doing a site visit, and you can see, they're doing a tremendous job of really laying out the SWAC logo all throughout the ballpark. So it's really captivating to kind of take a look at. Again, the production crew setting up all the wiring and to make sure that they have the camera shots. I had to give them kudos for what they did at the softball championship in terms of having all the angles. So you're getting a first-rate broadcast, you're getting a first-rate production. Looking forward to working with it with Santoria and Brett Oates. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And, I was talking with a coach earlier today, and, he was saying, at this point, especially with regards to your pitching staff, just throw strikes. Just give my defense an opportunity. That's all we can ask for. We know we can hit with anybody. I'm not going to tell you which coach it was, but pretty much he's like saying every coach is probably kind of saying the same thing. Just put the ball in play, or just throw strikes and put the ball in play. Let our defense help you. And that's what this tournament is going to be about. It's about not giving the extra out. It's about not putting base runners on, getting into these big, long innings and wearing out a bullpen. So it's going to be a fun tournament.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We're going to do the second half of the show where we take a deep dive and really look into the brackets now that they're official. We did a little bit and teased out some stuff last week in terms of what may or may not happen. Now we know what the lineups will be, and we essentially have, as AD did a great job of breaking it down, 2 4-team tournaments, if you would, where the champion of each tournament play each other in the conference championship for the conference tournament. So interesting to do that for the second half of the show. But I did want to get some news in here. So I want to get your thoughts on some news, what's hot in your mind. In the second segment, I'm going to read an update on the article that came out yesterday that's fascinating me. We'll spend that second segment, kind of talk through that article and get your thoughts on what I provide for our listeners, for those that may not have seen it, which is going to be fascinating itself. But let's talk a little bit about some news of the day, HBCU world. What's on your mind in terms of that space?
Well, and this is a great article on HBCU game day, but Tuskegee, the winningest program in HBCU football history, will host its first ever home night game on September 6th, 2025, a milestone, decades in the making. A tremendous interview that they had with Director of Athletics, Reginald Ruffin. But, part of the things that, he kind of talked about was the addition of lights at Cleve Abbott Memorial Stadium are more than just a game day upgrade. He talked about it being a strategic investment in Tuskegee's athletes and the university's broader goals. So, he talked about, athletics being the front porch to the university, and having those night games is going to be huge for Tuskegee in terms of what the fan experience that they're trying to bring down there to Tuskegee. So it's a fascinating interview, fascinating read. So that was one of the things that's in HBCU news today.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to AD Drew. You can go to Black College Nines. He did a great article in terms of SWAC baseball tournament, looking at the two divisions, how teams did each division in terms of playing each other, some of the top players, both in terms of hitters and pitchers. So if you get a chance, go check that out, particularly those that are going to be following the SWAC baseball tournament. If you want to know some names and get to know some of the players that Charles will be interviewing and talking to, and that you'll hear making plays or getting things done, making pitches as well throughout the tournament, to get a little early update on what that looks like. And you'll see many people referring it throughout the tournament. Go check out AD Drew and the work that he put together in terms of what that looks like. Fascinating work in so many different ways on that. I also wanted, since we're talking about the SWAC from that perspective, I want to talk about Bethune-Cookman claiming the regular season baseball championship title. First one in terms of the sports in the SWAC. Went down to the wire, played good baseball season long, and certainly earned the regular season championship. And as history would have it, this is the first championship without divisions since 1999, when the new SWAC first had expansion with Alabama A&M and UAPB coming back in as previously being a member as Arkansas A&M college, if you would. And so since that time, you think about it, there's been two division champions. So now you get the next iteration with the expansion. For a while, you had six division champions at the top of those six divisions doing it. And now you got one standing, and Bethune-Cookman will be ever stamped in the history in terms of 2025 of being the champions of the regular season. Now it's a different race. You got the mile race for the regular season, as I like to put it in an athletic term, and now you got the sprint. Two different ways baseball can be played. Obviously, you're rewarded in terms of going into the NCAA tournament for the relay, but both of them are important, and there are different ways of how you have to play the game. And, the good thing about the tournament format, it's a double whammy. So usually the best teams do find their way out of it. But at some point, when you talk about those top 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 teams, it gets interesting. Emmett Jones, yes, finally wins something. They do it in one of the big sports for those in SWAC that love baseball. So if you get it done, obviously football is way up there for most. Basketball, men's and women's are pretty heightened. But baseball, for a lot of folks in the SWAC, is a perennial sport, and one that we talked about with expansion, that a lot of folks that love it would have their eyes on it in terms of what that looks like. So shout out in terms of Bethune-Cookman getting it done in the tournament. Fascinating work there. Any other news that you want to share in terms of what that looks like?
Well, we have an embargo until about 6:30 Central Time, but want to let you know SWAC baseball banquet is going on right now, where they're going to announce the coach of the year. They're going to announce the newcomer of the year, pitcher of the year, co-hitters of the year, first and second team. So we'll wait until midway within the show to kind of make sure we go through and give that announcements. But as soon as it's over, I'm gonna probably peek my head in down there, see if it's still going on, and might get something to eat down there, Doc.
No doubt. We're gonna get you out of here pretty much on time and let you get that way. But you're perfectly right. In fact, we'll do our first break now. We'll come back and talk a little bit about that news, see if we can run right up before 6:30, take our break and come back and break that news based on the embargo, which will be released at 6:30. We'll do it here on the show and share it. And then we'll have 2 last segments, if you would, shortened segments to talk about those two brackets. So we'll get all this in the show tonight. So let's take our first break and come back on the other side and get into some other news in terms of the entire landscape of NCAA Division I Power Football Conference, Super 2 conferences, and all that good stuff. To see your thoughts on that a little bit, Charles, and educate our listeners for those that have been following this and want to know more information and those that may not have heard it yet. What may be lurking around the door? Let's take our first break and come back on the other side and do just that.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Charles, check this out. Let me get your thoughts on this and see what our listeners think. Power conferences working on contract to bind schools to new enforcement rules with strict punishments. Schools not signing risk eviction from their conference per the deal, regardless of the state laws combating impending House settlement. So we know this House settlement, people believe it's going to go through. They've made some adjustments, so they're waiting on this. This is coming from Ross Dillinger of Yahoo Sports. He's been breaking these kind of stories for at least the last year and a half, some 2 years, some may even say going back to COVID to some direction, certainly since we've heard all this litigation from this pending summit. But on May 1st, and perhaps an intentionally quiet signing, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee scrawled his name across the bottom of a 6-page state bill, Tennessee State Bill number 536. Its details unearthed last week paves the way for state schools such as University of Tennessee. He says Vanderbilt, I guess you can be state school but not public, Memphis, and their affiliated collectives to break House settlement-related rules and prevent college sports' new enforcement entity from penalizing those schools. In layman's terms, the law is a launch missile towards plans from the NCAA and Power Conference to police the revenue-sharing era of college sports. taking aim at the athlete's compensation cap, the severe penalties for rule breakers, and the policies that prevent phony booster-backed name, image, and likeness deals of players. But Power Conference executives have planned to combat such laws. Officials from the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and ACC are circulating a draft of a groundbreaking and first of its kind documents intended to prevent universities from using their state laws to violate new enforcement rules, and in wholly stunning concept require schools to waive their rights to pursue legal challenges against new enforcement entities. The College Sports Commission is what they're calling it. The document, now viewed by dozens of leading school administrators, would bind institutions to the enforcement policies, even if their state law is contradictory, and would exempt the CSC from lawsuits from member schools over enforcement decisions, offering instead a route for schools to pursue arbitration. I'll continue a little bit more here. The document, described as an affiliation or membership agreement, is not finalized, but a draft of the contract has been distributed to several school presidents, general counsels, and athletic directors, many of whom have expressed legal concerns with several of the document's concepts, which are now being redefined. This document is meant to be signed by all Power Conference schools, perhaps as well as others opting into the settlement, as a way to bind the group and provide stability around the enforcement rules that includes most notably decisions from new Deloitte-run NIL clearinghouse, dubbed NIL Go, an entity expected to more strictly enforce booster pay. Finally, not the entire article, but I'll stop it here. The consequences for signing the agreement is steep, and school risks the loss of conference membership and participation against other Power League programs. They won't even play it. You have to sign it, say one athletic director who has seen the document, or we don't play you. Quote, end quote. Quote, also, as a condition of membership, you must comply with the settlement and enforcement, end quote, says a Power Conference president with knowledge of the document. Charles, let's start here first. What are your thoughts? I know this is fresh. You just read it, so it's a lot, I'm sure, churning.
Yeah.
I want to know, kind of how do you feel about what you just heard?
Well,
not putting your eyes on it, but hearing
let
it.
me back up and just so that we all can understand. What does opting in to this settlement, what does it mean actually?
So opting in is, you heard the questions of people talking over the last couple of weeks, HBCUs. We've heard certain schools talk about opting in. That means you're opting into the agreement, first of all. You're also opting that you can participate in your institution paying athletes from any money that comes into the institution athletically to help with NIL type financial restitution for institutions participating in athletics at your institution, as well as being governed by the rules, capping that at $20-some million, 22. Obviously, HBCUs, some of them opted in. That doesn't mean that they have to go to the maximum, but it means that they can participate in the framework. Now it's tightening up that you will need to opt in a lot of ways to even be able to play with these institutions. Now you're talking about those money games, potentially. Obviously, this is set for the power institutions to govern themselves and play with each other. But as it did say, that there's a potential in there. A lot of ways they're probably in the G5s, but you do know there's some FCS matchups. So that's to play in this to some degree. As this rolls out, we'll get tighter definitions of what that looks like. But yes, opting in is the framework in terms of agreeing to the agreement that you want to participate at the highest level of what is FBS sports. So even if you're going to do the FCS things, you can still opt in because you're D1 in all other sports.
So let me back up again. there was and I know that the commissioners at the HBCU conferences had went to Congress to lobby against this legislation, and so
that's a good question. They lobbied against the framework and really lobbied for. I shouldn't say against. It was really lobbying for Congress to act to make sure that students were not labeled as employees. That's what they were lobbying for. And they were against anybody that was pushing the framework of college athletes being employees, which is something that you pointed out in another article that came across this from Chris Gardner. Shout out. He does some behind the scene works for the show and always keeps us informed on a lot of these issues that he sees in terms of where he does some work in his space at the Super 2 Power 2 levels, I like to call it. They call it the Autonomous 4 and the G6, it seems like now, in terms of how do you maneuver within those frameworks. That article talked about the fact that you're going to pay players in terms of this $22 million, but you don't want to call them employees. That's why you also have this same group of Super 2, Power 2, if you would, in terms of the 4, that are lobbying and now directly for the president to get involved, which he talks about signing another one of his Sharpie pens, and creating even more so a commission, which we hear with some great work that HBCU Sports did, talking about Nick Saban and what he's doing now in this big booster that donates billionaire from Texas Tech being the lead of this. So there's a lot of little sub parts of this, and essentially what you see, Charles, and then I'll get your opinion on this too, is you got a lot of these big players that want to control things that they're used to controlling. So essentially you have power brokers fighting over how they see college sports at the highest level financially. When I say highest level, how it should be governed, run, and operate. Some people believe that these power autonomous institutions should have players that should be named employees. They should collectively bargain and set the standards and move from there. The other folks that want to share some of the revenue, many of them will tell you they don't have a problem with NIL. They just don't want boosters doing things in the name of NIL to pay players what is obviously the market rate, because that's what you get in the market rate. You get whatever you can get, and the people willing to pay it. So essentially they are setting artificial caps. Let me put that out there. They pay these athletes. And people will say maybe at HBCUs, well, maybe somehow it would help us. No, we're too far gone with everybody else in some ways. And in my opinion, it's just going to further separate what that looks like if we're already not separated more. So, yes, I just want to keep everybody above what's going on, because there's a lot of things out there and it's moving so fast in different ways. So wanted to share that with you. Shout out to Edwin Moore, ESPN's 45th Annual Sports Emmy Awards, the Hitting Sports, a mini documentary submitted by SU students, is one of the finalists. Shout out to them. They also got that Emmy Award in regards to what that looks like. We've seen it from Alabama A&M. Want to make sure we show love. I've talked about that a couple of weeks ago, but good information. Further sharing that, because certainly can't share that enough. Shout out to the students that put together, got a lot of great work and very entertaining in terms of what those short films have been about. But sticking to this a little bit, I did want to put that out there so people could get a little glimpse of that. With that being said, let's take our next break, if you would. You can come back, and now you're going to be able to release the superlatives for the SWAC, and then we can get into some of these basketball matchups to get back to the action. But wanted to get that talk in there, so thanks for asking those questions so I could frame it a little bit about what's going on. And we'll have some time maybe next week as we kind of close up things to get a little deeper in that. I'm sure more information will be out there so to give us ability to even talk more fresh about that. So let's take our next break, come back on the other side, talk about these superlatives, and then we'll continue with the rest of the show as well.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. With that being said, Charles, take it away. Give us some updates. What you got, man?
Yeah, let's take a look at the 2025 All-SWAC baseball team and some individual awards. Let's start off with the Coach of the Year. Coach Jonathan Hernandez from Bethune-Cookman. He is the Coach of the Year. Drum roll, Player of the Year is Cardell Thibodeau from Southern. Huge year for Cardell Thibodeau at Southern.
Got it done.
Yes, indeed.
Got it done.
We got co-hitters of the year this year. From Alabama State, Juan Cruz, co-hitter of the year. And from Bethune-Cookman, Andre Martinez, he's co-hitter of the year. So those are your co-hitters of the year, Doc.
Good stuff. Juan Cruz was what? Second in batting average to Cardell Thibodeau that was player of the year. Andre Martinez was second in home runs as Cardell Thibodeau was leading in home runs. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Pitcher of the year, Eric Elliott from Jackson State. He's the pitcher of the year. I have to pull up his statistics, but he had a heck of a year.
Last I had him was top of the conference. Eric Elliott was 2.85 in terms of ERA. He was, in terms of strikeouts, number 2 in the conference behind his teammate, Eric Gonzalez, who at the time had 86. Eric Elliott had 83. So certainly at the top of the conference. In many of those areas. So, and in terms of wins, I have Eric Elliott in top 5. He had 6 wins in terms of the conference. So, could see certainly where he stuffed the box in many areas.
No doubt.
He may have been able to get picked at the top of the conference. No argument for me thus far. Those folks are all leading, certainly could make a case. So, keep going. Just wanted to give those kind of updates as you bringing it to the table. Good stuff, Joe.
No doubt. Relief pitcher of the year, Giancarlo Zambrano from Bethune-Cookman. He is the what's that? They used to call that the Fireman Award back in Major League parlance. But he's a relief pitcher of the year. Freshman of the year is Garrett Workman from Florida A&M, and probably no surprise, the newcomer of the year, Cardell Thibodeau from Southern. So. Congratulations to those guys for their individual superlatives. So we take a look now at the all swag baseball.
Let's give those because we kind of interrupt and we did commentary. List again those top, just the names and the schools, those superlatives that you got, so everybody can get those. And then let's break it down for the rest of them as you were going to do.
Sure thing. Coach of the year, Jonathan Hernandez from Bethune-Cookman. Player of the year, Cardell Thibodeau from Southern. We got co-hitters of the year, Juan Cruz from Alabama State and Andre Martinez from Bethune-Cookman. They are your co-hitters of the year. The pitcher of the year is Eric Elliott from Jackson State. And the relief pitcher of the year is Giancarlo Zambrano from Bethune-Cookman. The freshman of the year, Garrett Workman from Florida A&M. And the newcomer of the year is, of course, Cardell Thibodeau from Southern. So tremendous individual accolades for those gentlemen.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Can you break down the first team at least?
Let's take a look at the first team. The catcher, saw him up close, man. He has a gun. Brody Popple from Florida A&M has a heck of an arm. He is all swag first team catcher. At first base, Juan Cruz from Alabama State. At second base, Jesus Venegas from Bethune-Cookman. At third base is Jay Campbell from Florida A&M. The shortstop, I call him the human Hoover, Bryce Hughes from Texas Southern. So that is your infield. Again, there's Brody Popple, a catcher from Florida A&M, Juan Cruz at first base from Alabama State, Jesus Venegas from Bethune-Cookman. Second base, at third base is Jay Campbell from Florida A&M, and at shortstop is Texas Southern's Bryce Hughes. The DH on the first team is Taj Bates from Southern. A lot of representation from the Southern Jaguars. And now let's take a look at the outfield. Cardell Thibodeau from Southern. Andre Martinez from Bethune-Cookman. Cameron Douglas from Alabama State. Those are your outfielders on the all swag baseball first team. The pitchers are Eric Elliott, first team from Jackson State. Kenny Fabian from Arkansas Pine Bluff. And Giancarlo Zambrano from Bethune-Cookman is your relief pitcher. So that's the all swag first teamers.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Congratulations to the all swag first teamers. Let's go with the second team all swag, Charles.
Let's take a look at all swag second team. Chris Marcellus is the catcher from Grambling. At first base is Wilbert Perez from Jackson State. At second base is Alex Espelon from Alabama State. At third base is KJ White from Southern. And at shortstop is Jeter Polito from Bethune-Cookman. The DH on the second team all swag is Damian Garcia from Texas Southern. Let's take a look at the outfielders. Trey Rutledge, tremendous year from Alabama A&M. Darrell Lee from Bethune-Cookman. And Jordan McClatty from Jackson State. So that's your infield and outfielders. Your pitchers on the second team, Johan LeBoy from Alabama State. Edwin Sanchez from Bethune-Cookman. Nick Luckett, great year for Southern on the mound. He's represents Southern. Ethan Bates is the relief pitcher from Grambling State, and Peyton Huff from Southern. So a lot of representation from the Southern Jaguars on this first and second team.
Yeah, they got it done in terms of stats. Not quite win, but they did make the tournament. So that's always going to be a dangerous team when you talk about how much talent is on that team. It's going to create some interesting matchups, and we'll talk about that on the other side. But as we get prepared to go to this next break, I did want to point out, I did not hear you mention anybody from Prairie View A&M University.
No representation from Prairie View.
No representation from Mississippi Valley State.
No representation from Mississippi
Valley State. Nor Alcorn State.
Right.
So those three of the four teams that were left out, we did have Alabama A&M was left out, but shout out to Trey Rutledge. Mm-hmm. Alabama A&M, he was able to get on the second team. And boy, was he talented as he was third in the conference in batting average and third in terms of stolen bases. If his team did better, you'd imagine he probably would have made first team. But credit to him when you show that much talent, even though you're left out of that final first 8, you still were able to climb and get accolades with coaches respected what you brought to the table. across the conference. So I want to give him a little shout out in terms of showing out there. Everybody else made the tournament, had some type of representation. I believe, yep, everybody else, I believe, got on the list in one form or fashion. With that being said, let's take our next break and come back on the other side. We'll talk a little bit about Bracket A. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell them.
Greetings, staffers. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Charles Bishop, let's talk about that Bracket A. What are your thoughts in terms of this matchup where you get 1 versus 8 and then 3 versus 6, which is interesting. We did kind of catch this last week. Traditionally, when you think about brackets, you usually look at the top seed versus the lower seed. Well, we get that, 1 versus 8. But you think about a tournament proceeding with the highest seed always winning. So traditionally in an 18 bracket, you would have 4 versus 5 also in the same bracket of A, which means you project that number 1 seed would move forward and the 4 seed would win. So you get a 1 versus 4. Not the case in this week. We'll see what that means, how it plays out. Double elimination. So it's kind of fascinating. So with that being the case, instead of getting a matchup that would feature Arkansas Pine Bluff, you actually get the 3 versus 6, which is Alabama State and Jackson State. Well, again, let me say that. That is the Bethune-Cookman and Texas Southern, 1 versus 8, 3 versus 6, which is Alabama State and Jackson State. Starts off Wednesday, tomorrow morning. Charles will be up and early, getting his breakfast and ready to go for a long day at the ballpark.
Long day.
With that being said, let's start it off and give some of your insight. I know you can't share all your stuff that you're going to share tomorrow with a lot of folks, but you can give us some thoughts today going in tomorrow. What are you looking for in terms of these matchups? And before you do that, the first question, do you see any advantage that you see or disadvantage the fact that you got 1 versus 8, 3 versus 6 instead of 1 versus 8 and 4 versus 5?
I think it really does help Texas Southern tremendously that they did get a win last week against Bethune-Cookman on last Friday. They beat Bethune-Cookman 5-2. So the question for me jumps out: Does James Malone get to start again against Bethune-Cookman? He really did a heck of a job against Bethune-Cookman on this past Friday. Won 6 2/3. Really kept Texas Southern in the game. It was 2-0 going into, if I'm not mistaken, the 8th inning when Texas Southern kind of exploded in the 8th inning to put up 5 runs. But it'll be very interesting. I was around, happened to show up at the field when Texas Southern was getting their practice swings in and getting some fielding in, but very loosey-goosey bunch. They're kind of excited to go in tomorrow to take on kind of the big bad Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. So that'll be a very interesting matchup. Although, like I said, Bethune-Cookman they took the series and took 2 out of 3 from Texas Southern, but that win kind of boosted the spirits, if you will, of Texas Southern because they were really struggling for a second or two. Tough matchup for Jackson State, taking on Alabama State in that 3-6 matchup, because when you take a look at that, I think Bama State is 3-1 this season against Jackson State. So tough matchup going up against Johan LeBoy, one of the better pitchers in the SWAC. So it's, to me, Jackson State is one of the more dangerous teams. They do a lot of things really well, but the question comes down to, can they do it in a timely fashion? So, they got some boppers, they got some speed, they got good pitching, but can they put it together when they really need to put it together against Alabama State?
Good stuff. Let's go stay the course, and let's say the top seeds win, so you get 1 versus 3 on Thursday, which would be Bethune-Cookman versus Alabama State. And then that means you would get the loser bracket game, which would feature Texas Southern and Jackson State. Let's take the first one, Bethune-Cookman and Alabama State. If it goes that way, what are your thoughts in terms of early matchups in that second day affair?
I still like Bethune-Cookman's pitching. They probably have what I would think would be one of the better staffs going into this game. If they get the win coming out of they get the win versus Texas Southern and don't really have to reach into their bullpen a lot. I like them going in, as they kind of progress through the tournament in terms of just having quality arms that can kind of stymie offenses.
I like our logo there. It looks like the championship is Dr. Ville's HBCU in terms of what they're playing for. Not to be, maybe not. But anyway, since you talk about that, that means you would have a Texas Southern Jackson State. This is interesting. They used to open up the season a couple of years ago, Texas Southern going to Jackson State to play there to open up things. Since the Cactus Jack Classic, you might see them in part of those games, but it's not to open up the season in Jackson. It's here in Houston over a 3-day period. What do you see, nevertheless? What do you see in that matchup?
Jackson State is a little bit of a dark horse for me in terms of what they can do. They made their way to the championship game last year by, and I know Coach Omar hates to hear me say it, but when they play small ball and they got runners moving all over the place and they make the defense make throws and things of that nature, they can be a kind of a tough out to deal with. So I from what I've seen this season from Texas Southern, they have been prone to giving you the extra out, things of that nature where an inning can kind of balloon. And that's the thing that kind of concerns me most in terms of watching what Texas Southern can do in this tournament, whether they can, keep guys off base, especially with regards to the pitching, not have too many walks or things of that nature. But more than anything, not give teams an extra out. Jackson State is one of those teams that can really exploit that because they're going to start bunting the ball and they're going to start making you make plays in the infield and things of that nature. And if you're not on your defensive toes, they can run you out of an inning fast.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So let me ask it this way. Do you go with the favorite as number 1 seed Bethune-Cookman coming out of this, or somebody else?
I like Bethune-Cookman. I think they're a favorite for a reason. Number 1 seed for a reason. We always talk about Bethune-Cookman pitching, but they can beat the cover off the ball as well. They're one of the better hitting teams that we've seen. You see Andre Martinez, one of the top sluggers in the conference. So they're not a team that you can sleep on offensively. Like I said, they've had a tremendous season, and like I said, we have a tendency to always talk about how good a pitching that they have, but they can put up some numbers as well from an offensive standpoint.
That's true. Go back a little bit. We did say if the winners come out, you get the 1 versus 3, which would be Bethune-Cookman and Alabama State. They did have the series. It was in Daytona. It was one of the closest series matchups that I anticipated watching. It was for first place, essentially. That was a couple of weeks ago. Bethune-Cookman swept Alabama State, but those games all went to the end. The first 2 games were 1 run. Even the third game, which ended up being a 3-1 game, I believe, maybe 2. But it was a 1-run game until the 8th inning, where you had Bethune-Cookman get a 3-1 inning to go up 4 runs, I think it was, as they were just up 1. But even in that game, it was important for them to get those extra runs because, like what happened in the other ones, in the top of the 9th, Alabama State was able to scratch 1 in, but it wasn't not because they put extra runs, and so they went through it. Jackson State and Texas Southern is always interesting, so it'll be fascinating to say with that. If you had to say an upset came out of bracket A and it was not Bethune-Cookman, which of the other 3 you saying would be the team that you see doing upset and somehow coming out of bracket A?
Jackson State.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. I can see that. Well, let's take our next break. We'll come back on the other side. For our final segment, we'll look at bracket B and break down that bracket. Stick with us. Be right back after this last break.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
Charles, we got a little bit of the rivalry up here. I have both my biases to make sure I'm in play. Both Texas Southern and Prairie View, you see on this side here. So a little bit of that Labor Day Classic, man. Getting ready for that Labor Day Classic. You know I was going to sneak a little bit of football in there for you. Y'all tell me I got to find a way to do it.
It'll be here before we know it.
Are you right? Because we'll be back in Birmingham. This one will be for the media day in July. With that being said, let's jump back into it and get into this bracket B. Things get interesting over here as well. When we talk about bracket B, your number 2 seed is out of the state of Florida, which is Florida A&M Rally. So you have teams that have won some championships in this bracket recently. When you think about it, you have last year's champion Grambling State, and the year before's champion, Florida A&M. Boy, I tell you, you got Southern that has had a lot of champions. The only one that hasn't got it done is Arkansas Pine Bluff, but they could be the spoiler. With that being said, 2 versus 7. Boy, you talking about Carlos, I don't know if he likes this matchup or doesn't like this matchup. I know one thing he doesn't like, which is the colors of Florida A&M, the orange and green. Well, Roy says he loves them just fine. With that being said, you got the 2 versus 7, Florida A&M and Southern, that 12 o'clock game, if you would, on Wednesday, and then you have the nightcap. 4 versus 5, Arkansas Pine Bluff versus Grambling. They played earlier. Grambling took 2 out of 3. You did have a matchup for FAMU and Southern. That was in the Major League Baseball. Southern at that time was pounding the ball, and they jumped on FAMU and only allowed them to score runs. I think they put up 16, 17 runs in that matchup. I know that was long time ago, beginning of the season, but with everything else that has been played, what do you say about bracket B in terms of the matchup, first going with FAMU and Southern, and then we'll come back and talk about the other matchup?
Well, I think you touched on it. I mean, that was a long time ago, but Southern did beat Florida A&M 17-1 in that game back on February 25th. So that's something that they can kind of keep in their back pocket. But the question for me with regards to Southern, do they get any pitching in this tournament? Once you get beyond Nick Luckett, what happens behind Nick Luckett? So the question for me is, can Southern get off to a good start tomorrow against Florida A&M? Can he keep Florida A&M's bats off balance? We saw with regards to Florida A&M, they can kind of string, some innings along by getting some quality base hits. Got great guys, Brody Popple, Jay Campbell, two guys that are in the front part of their lineup. Very tough to get out. We saw them stay on base constantly when they came out to Houston and took on Texas Southern. So the question for me is, Florida A&M's pitching. Can they keep those Southern bats at bay? You got guys with some serious power. We talked about Cardell Thibodeau. We talked about Taj Bates, but KJ White's another one. They got guys up and down that lineup that can really hit the ball, but can Florida A&M's pitching stymie that? The intriguing one to me, Doc, is Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Grambling. Grambling, when you take a look at the series this year against UAPB, they're 3-2 against UAPB, but Grambling can mash baseball. We saw that in the tournament last year. They got a couple of guys, Cameron Hill being one of them. If you haven't heard of him, you're going to hear his name in this tournament. He can knock the cover off the ball. They're right behind Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman, I believe, 86 home runs on the season. Grambling, 75 home runs on the season. So they got guys up and down that lineup that can really hit the baseball. And we saw with Grambling last year, once, they got a little bit of pitching because they came out of the losers bracket last year. But, I mean, who is that one middle reliever that's going to give them a quality 3-4 innings to where those bats can really get up and going? That's what I keep looking for in this tournament.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Let's go with that 4-5 Arkansas Pine Bluff, since you kind of touched on it a little bit. What has you so intense about this matchup? What has you excited and say, hey, keep your eyes on this?
Well, I think if the starter tomorrow is Kenny Fabian, he's one of the better pitchers in the SWAC. First team all SWAC, if I'm not mistaken. We went over that list. But him going up against this Grambling lineup, and like I said, they're 1 through 5. They can pound the cover off the ball. They're a very dangerous team. And from talking to a couple of parents who've watched them during the course of the season with Grambling, they kind of feed off of each other. If one gets one, then it just kind of something that catches down up and down the lineup. So it's going to be very interesting if they can get Fabian off balance a little bit tomorrow. Their bats can really take over.
Again, this traditionally, if you talk about an 18 bracket, you have 2 versus 7 instead of 4 versus 5, 3 versus 6. Do you think this bracket becomes more challenging the way it is now, or if it had the 3-6 matchup as you would see in a traditional 18 bracket?
This is pretty challenging. I mean, if I'm Florida A&M, I don't know if I really want to see Southern from the jump.
Everybody's ace is usually pretty good. I tell everybody.
Yeah.
Ace,
I think everybody's ace is pretty good.
Ace is pretty good. So, and as baseball is played, if you get deep in the game, you think about a tournament action, a play or two can be the difference in terms of that, which is different when you get into a 3-game series. Even if you somehow give up that first game, traditionally the better team is going to weigh themselves off over the next 3 games.
No doubt.
And so they'll win a 2-game series. And we see that even with sweeps where the first game may be close, or at least one game is close, even if they move around the pitchers to day 2 because they think of a better matchup. You usually see one game, even between teams that are not record-wise equal, that take place. So fascinating when you talk about that a little bit.
Another little intriguing point with me, Doc, in terms of looking at Florida A&M and Southern, we talked about Brody Popple being one of the better catchers in the SWAC, first team all SWAC catcher, but going up against that Southern lineup, they are one of the best base stealing teams, not just in the SWAC, but in the country. They've stolen 183 bases on the season. I think the next closest team to Southern in the SWAC is still 30 stolen bags behind them. So once they get on base, they're taking off running. So it'll be a very interesting cat and mouse when you talk about the Florida A&M defense versus Southern's base runners once they get on.
Good stuff. A couple more questions and we'll call it a show. When we look at it, if we extend this out and we go with the top seeds winning, that means your second matchup between winners would be 2 versus 4. And then your loser bracket would be a Bayou Classic on the dirt, which would be Southern versus Grambling, a 7 versus 5. With that being said, 2 versus 4, FAMU, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Southern versus Grambling. What do you think in those matchups?
I would like. You said 2. Did you say 2 versus 4?
Yeah, and so we're projecting with the top seeds coming out, which means you would have 4 defeat the 5, so 4 would move on.
Yeah,
you have 2 beat 7, so that means you get a 2 versus 4. FAMU versus Pine Bluff, and then the loser bracket would be the losers, Southern and Grambling.
No, I think Florida A&M has the pitching, the requisite pitching that could sustain them through the course of the tournament. So I would like them. They would be the favorite to me against Arkansas Pine Bluff, against Grambling. I think they are that team that can sustain, just quality baseball throughout the course of the tournament. So although I know we're going to see surprises in the tournament, I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the day if it was Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M 1 versus 2 fighting it out.
All right, so let me get you out of here on this last one. It sounds like you see FAMU coming out of the bracket, but if FAMU doesn't come out of the B bracket, who's the other team that you say between Grambling, Southern, and Pine Bluff? Who's the other team that would come out and face a Bethune-Cookman or a Jackson?
Grambling.
Okay.
Grambling's a team I keep an eye on.
You see it going to the top seeds. We would get a all Florida matchup. Bethune-Cookman number 1 seed against the number 2 seed FAMU. If you get the upsets and it plays out with both upsets in each division, you get a rematch of last year's champion with the Louisiana-Mississippi rivalry, Jackson State and Grambling. I could go for either one of those in the champions, but we'll see how it plays out. With that being said, let's close it up in terms of the matchup and let you get out of here and see if you can get back over there to the tennis and give us some updates. We'll see what we're going to do on Thursday. We'll be there. If we can find facilities and ability to do the show, we'll do it, working with AD Roy. But they'll be moving around. We'll see how that looks like. So we'll try to bring you something on Thursday, but be aware that we live, so we might not be able to do that depending on how the arena is and whether we can get Ethernet and all that kind of stuff. With that being said, thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. There will be no independent show this Wednesday, but they look to get back into the mix next Wednesday. Give you a little update there as well. I am the Dean of HBCU Sports. That's Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Standard Time. We'll see if we can get back to you on Thursday to give you that update. Shout out for the lab listener to talk about my bucket hat. Shout out in terms of, do a little bit of traveling here and there. We find a way to get around. All things was in Las Vegas on Friday for all that stuff. Sometimes you got to find a way to make moves and get things done. Got some good trips for this summer as well. So we'll keep you updated in between the work. See if I can get back out to the Caribbeans and the Bahamas. You know how I like to play in the sand, Charles. With that being said, we look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the labs. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattacavil. That's Threads, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Facebook and YouTube. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Roy?
Lecture.
Dismissed. I like it. He pulled out the hat.